My name is Nick Marquez. I reside in Grand Junction, Colorado. I hooked up with FavoriteAgent.com about 4 years ago, and my success started there. I have had several clients in excess of $1 million. I've had many clients in excess of $300,000 in purchases, and my referral business, of course, is growing each year. I wouldn't trade FavoriteAgent.com for another service for anything, and I highly recommend that you sign up with FavoriteAgent.com for your area. Just stay out of mine.
Hi, my name is Matt Jones, and I'm the President and CEO of FavoriteAgent.com. Let's assume that you've acquired the essential technologies that I talked about in the previous sessions in this series. Now let's talk about the practical side of practicing real estate from a virtual office. By way of a short review of the previous 4 installments, the first, Are You Ready for the 1-Minute Commute? Discuss the idea of working remotely in a virtual office from a macro or a big picture perspective, and just how mainstream that idea is becoming. Today, 23% of our nation's workforce currently work remotely, and another 62% would like to. Next, in the virtual office, I talked about building a virtual real estate practice and the crucial technologies that allow agents to receive the benefits of an office, specifically communication, instruction, supervision, and money, in a web environment as opposed to a brick and mortar location. At this point, we were still very theoretical and macro in our discussion. Next was Virtual Office Technology Part 1 and Virtual Office Technology Part 2, where I got very specific about which technologies are essential to the successful practice of real estate in today's new real estate economy. I listed the 8 crucial technologies you need and showed you how you could get them for less than you spend on lunch. If you haven't watched these sessions, I encourage you to stop now and do so. Now, I'd like to move away from the theoretical and begin to paint you a picture. I'm afraid that for many of you watching this series, what I'm preaching sounds like science fiction and not reality. I realize that the average agent who watches this will be a 52-year-old female who's very relational in a real estate practice and reluctant to rely on technology. Okay, for the 42% of you who are men, you too average 52 years old, and you too are allergic to technology, although maybe not quite as much as your female counterpart, but you tend to be less relational in your practice than your female counterpart as well. Anyways, you've both been in a business an average of 10.5 years, so changing your mindset is going to be difficult. I know that for many of you, going virtual sounds either too complicated, too impersonal, too expensive, or just plain too different to even consider. But I'm telling you as soberly as I know how to tell you that you really need to consider it. And consider it quickly, or you may find yourself considering another career. I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm encouraging you to make the painless adaptation to this new age of real estate. It really is easier than you probably believe. I'd like to expand your thinking a bit, as if I haven't already, by giving you a virtual tour of a virtual company, my company. I'd like to take you through it one part at a time and contrast it with your real estate brokerage so you can see the practical advantage over a traditional model company. And once you've seen it with your own eyes, you'll be able to embrace this new way of doing real estate. Let's start with everyone's favorite topic, money. The average traditional brokerage in America pays its agents 62% of gross commission income, or GCI, and yet brings only 2% to the bottom line. In fact, some companies pay their agents even less and still see lower profit margins. Many broker owners continue to list and sell real estate because they can't afford to keep the doors open without being the top producer in their own office. When I started in real estate, I worked for a very traditional independent company. A year and a half later, the owner decided to make it a traditional franchise company. At one point, we had as many as 35 agents. But for the entire 2 years I was with the company, we never had a single profitable month. Why did we stay open? Well, the owner was also a builder, and although he continually lost money in the real estate practice, the brokerage sold a lot of his new homes and he made good money on the construction. As soon as he closed his construction business and became a developer, guess what? He sold the franchise because there was no way to make a reasonable profit in today's climate. Contrast that to my current real estate brokerage. We paid our agents last year an average of 85% of GCI, or gross commission income, and yet brought 13% to the bottom line. Pure profit. Now I know what you're thinking. How can you run a brokerage on the remaining 2% of GCI? Well, listen closely because I'm going to tell you. We have a virtual office model. Before you dismiss it as not being real enough, let me remind you that we have the largest office, yes, brick and mortar office in our local market. When I say virtual, I don't mean without a physical location. I mean technology empowered. Today's new real estate model is about empowerment through technology. To give you some specifics, I spent nothing for my 8,000 square foot state-of-the-art transaction center last year. My affiliated business arrangements, in other words, 2 in-house mortgage companies, an in-house law firm, and a title company covered the entire physical overhead. Our company doesn't advertise. Our agents do. And our agents spend the same amount of money on advertising as our competitors, and yet they receive about 30 times as many customers. And why is that? Again, the power of technology. While our company's over twice the size of the brokerage I started in, we only have 1 full-time employee as opposed to the 8 full-time employees they had. How? Again, technology. We don't have a receptionist. We don't have an MLS clerk. We don't have a file clerk. We don't have an office manager. We don't have a rental department and property managers. We don't have a bookkeeper. We don't have a lot of personnel overhead. We don't have a lot of office politics. It's kind of hard to be political all by yourself. We don't have a lot of sick days. We don't have a lot of office turnover. We don't have a lot of bickering or griping. What we do have is efficiency. When I was an agent in a traditional office, when I took a new listing, I filled out a form and turned it into an MLS clerk. Assuming the clerk was actually at work that day or not behind from missing work previously, a full day transpired before my listing was in the MLS. And invariably it was entered wrong. But the clerk didn't bother to call me with a question. How did I find out about the mistake? From my client, who managed to find out about the mistake before I did. Then the client would call me angry and I'd turn in the correction. If all went smoothly, it would take a week for the listing to actually be entered correctly in the MLS, creating needless liability for the company and me, and costing the company lots of money that could have been returned to the agents in the form of commissions. By contrast, our agents enter their own listings. No lack of communications, no time lag, no bureaucracy, no hassle, no cost to the office. And the agents prefer it. The clients aren't angry because they caught the mistake some minimum wage clerk made and assumed the mistakes were made by their agent. At the traditional office where I began, either duty agents or paid receptionists fielded all lead calls. Now, I have to explain, we had a strict policy in place that should any call come in requesting information about a specific property, the lead was to be given to the listing agent. That's pretty simple. Now, because all agents are honest, you know that policy was consistently obeyed, right? I averaged 50 to 60 listings, active listings, while I was an agent with a company, and I was available every single day to answer my phone. And you know what? Not once did a call come in from all 50 signs. Not once. The reason I know is because I would have been given the lead, right? You see my picture. Contrast that to our virtual company. Our agents are allowed to advertise, including their yard signs, their very own phone numbers, as well as our company IVR hotline number. And if a customer calls our IVR hotline, the call is electronically routed to the agent without anyone even touching it, or stealing it, or dropping the ball. Simultaneously, both an email and text message are sent to the agent. The email and text messages contain the caller's name, phone number, the property that was called about, and the advertising source. In other words, whether the call came from a yard sign, a homes magazine, their website, or wherever. Again, expensive and inefficient personnel has been replaced with inexpensive and very efficient technology. In that traditional company, any internet leads that came to the broker. The broker's lead coordinator eventually got around to sending them to a handful of brokers' pet agents who generally did little or nothing with them. The company had a website, and it listed the agents on the company site. The website was always out of date and did very little in terms of capturing business. In our company, each of our agents has his own website. They generate as much business as they want from them, and nobody else ever sees or touches those leads. The company also refers leads to some of our agents, and those leads can be seen and managed completely by our managing broker through our pipeline contact management platform. We can see exactly what the progress is with any lead at any time. If the agent is not doing his job in following up a company lead, the broker can pull that lead back from the original agent and reassign it to another agent with a click of a mouse. It's easy and it's seamless. The lead, the complete entire history and notes is removed from one agent's contact manager and inserted seamlessly into the others. Now, how cool is that? I know that I'm causing some of you to have a meltdown, but stick with me. Don't feel like the Lone Ranger. About 2.5 years ago, a very successful broker owner attended one of our national agent summits, quarterly training seminar where we teach the new model of real estate. Now, I won't reveal his name, but you should know that he is extremely successful, and his company owns 5 large offices in Atlanta. His is one of the most innovative and most profitable operations in the entire country, and he actually brings almost 5% to the bottom line. He's one of the top real estate franchisees in the world, and the office where he works had 165 agents. Now, he drove to our office in his new Jaguar, dressed impeccably in expensive clothing and jewelry. He was the man. He was powerful and impressive. When we all met around the large conference table, it was clear that this was the big dog in the room. Everyone waited for his reaction before speaking. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. In our first session, he sat with his arms crossed over his chest and his head cocked back a little, as if to say, "Go ahead, tell me something I don't know." I have to admit, I was a little intimidated. He was and is an extremely sharp guy. By the second session, he was sitting on the edge of his chair, and by the third session, he was taking notes furiously. By the fourth session, he was begging for more information in wide-eyed disbelief. We messed him up. We completely blew his mind. On his drive home, he called our office and said that he'd been speaking with his partners and wanted to know what he had to do to purchase the development rights to Georgia. He wanted to lock down our model in his state. He had to see it to actually believe it, but after 2 full days of sitting in our classroom in the middle of our office building, watching real estate the new way, the favored agent way, he experienced an awakening. I can assure you it was not the profound wisdom that rolled from my lips, as eloquent as I am. It was actually experiencing something so radically different from the traditional real estate model for which he was universally considered to be a master. His real estate world will never be the same again. He caught a vision of something so powerful and yet at the same time so simple that it literally messed him up. Why did he want to buy the rights to Georgia? Our company is much smaller than his. Here's why. When his eyes were opened, he realized that when our model of real estate came to Atlanta, his model of real estate was finished. He paid his agents far less than we do, and yet he still netted less profit. His overhead was staggering and ours was minimal. His agent services were good, but ours were every bit as good. He saw that we had everything that his company had, only we did it virtually. Now, I realize that I've given you a lot to absorb and process, so I'll break here for this segment. In the next segment, I'd like to walk you through our office and give you a guided tour, a virtual tour of our virtual company, if you will. I'll try to help you actually picture it. Of course, you're welcome to come actually visit anytime you'd like. We still have a few seats available for our next summit, and it's free. Call us and register, and you'll be able to spend 2 full days seeing how our virtual company works, and in the process make a lot of new friends.